Brothers and sisters, please stand and join us in our opening prayer. I seek Allah's refuge against the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Lord of the worlds, Master of the day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and thine aid do we seek. O Allah, guide us along the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, and not the path of those upon whom wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Ameen. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. We are forever grateful and thankful to Almighty God Allah for his divine intervention into our affairs, coming in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And we are further grateful to Allah for his raising up among us, the black man and woman of America, a divine leader, teacher, and guide in the personage of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Most of us in this room would not be cognizant of what God did for us in the world through the honorable Elijah Muhammad, were it not for the divine and providential hand of God once again giving to us another helper, another aider, a divine reminder, a comforter in truth in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We thank Allah for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we are very grateful and thankful to Allah for each and every one of you, and I greet you all with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Happy Savior's Day. Brothers and sisters, I am so very excited to be able to serve you today at our Savior's Day convention during this plenary session entitled The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. And again, we thank each and every one of you for your kind participation and attention as we go behind the scenes, beneath the surface of that which we have become very familiar with it, which is the controversy between the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, and members of the Jewish community. And as we go forward today, we will be exposing some of the academic and scholarly resources that verify and support that which is really a cardinal principle of what we believe. And I reference for you at this time what the Muslims believe, which is on the back page of the Final Call newspaper in point number 5, wherein it reads, "We believe in the resurrection of the dead, not in physical resurrection, but in mental resurrection. We believe that the so-called Negroes are most in need of mental resurrection. Therefore, they will be resurrected first. Furthermore, we believe we are the people of God's choice. As it has been written, that God would choose the rejected and the despised. We can find no other persons fitting this description in these, the last days, more than the so-called Negroes in America. We believe in the resurrection of the righteous." Now, those two powerful paragraphs are saying a lot. But at the root of that is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad making a declaration that we believe that the black man and woman of America are in fact the people of God. To use biblical language, we would say that we believe that our people are in fact the real children of Israel. And this year we are all familiar with the fact that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on June 26 in Atlanta, Georgia, he introduced a series of lectures, he introduced a campaign, and he introduced two very powerful and profound books in his subject or his series heading The Real Children of Israel. And so today we have assembled, or I should say to be more accurate, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has assembled a group of brothers and sisters, affectionately referred to as the Gazebo Group, who have been studying, they have been researching, they have been fact-finding, all for the express purpose of clearing the good name of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. Many of us are familiar with the fact that so much of the great work of the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is omitted when we celebrate Black History Month, is omitted when black people open up their heart and express love and admiration for their leaders. We oftentimes find it apropos to revere our deceased leaders. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a living leader, but he is, as he has said, in a prison of public opinion. Where the question becomes, who of us will be courageous enough to take the keys and go and unlock the jail cell of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to free our minister? Which one of us will be courageous enough and love the minister enough and love Allah enough to do that which is intelligent, to do that which is wise, and begin to hurl truth at falsehood, so as the Holy Quran says, it knocks out falsehood's brains. Make no mistake about it, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is not today and has never been an anti-Semite, and we will prove that today. All of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's good works have been denied. Many of these brothers that are assembled today, they remember, and some were a part of the NOI security teams, the dope busters. Others were a part of the Power Product Economic Development Program, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who was recently criticized by Abraham Foxman, the head of the ADL, for not creating jobs in the black community. We remember when the minister put forth this economic initiative to do just that, create jobs for our people, but it was the title of being an anti-Semite that caused many people to keep their distance from the minister and not want us to support him in this effort. Part of our problem is that as a people emerging from a condition of self-hatred, oftentimes we focus on what we find as our own hands sometimes and our own undoing. But when you read The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 1, 2, as well as Jews Selling Blacks, when you hear from these powerful and erudite scholars that have been assembled by the minister today, you will understand the truth of the situation. You will understand that even in the dope busters not being in existence anymore, that even in the Power Product Program not being in existence anymore, you'll find that even in the coalitions of black leaders and black organizations who Minister Farrakhan rallied around the idea of operational unity, you'll find that there was a hidden hand in our undoing. Unfortunately, it is by a people who themselves have attached the title or moniker, the real people of God. But I promise you today, brothers and sisters, we are going to hurl truth at falsehood until it knocks out falsehood's brains. We are today going to be disabused of what has been a scourge against our beloved minister. Think of all of the great works of Minister Farrakhan. Think of the Million Man March, where 2 million or nearly 2 million black men came to Washington, D.C. for atonement, reconciliation, and to accept responsibility for the hurt and the pain that we cause one another. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has often gotten in trouble because we could say that he is an equal opportunity analyzer or critic of wrong and evil. And oftentimes, those outside of our community, they don't have a problem with us talking about what we do to one another. But when we lift our voice to begin to analyze and speak out against the evil and wrong done to us, that is where we get into trouble. So we want to, in a dispassionate way and in a very academic and scholarly way today, present our case before you and before the world. Today we want to look at what is in these books, the secret relationship between blacks and Jews. Why have these books come out at this time? How are they relevant to the onward struggle of black people in America and around the world for progress? And so we want you to put your thinking caps on. And if you came to this session thinking about some of the fiery rhetoric of the past, if you came to this session thinking that this is a Jew bashing session, which I don't think any of us did, but you never know, we just want you to know and believe that we are not going to waste your time with that kind of foolishness today. That is unbecoming of us as Muslims. That is unbecoming of us as followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings under Minister Farrakhan's leadership. So at this time, I'm going to put a pin in my opening remarks, and we're going to segue into a video montage which will capsulize the history of this controversy between Minister Farrakhan and members of the Jewish community. We hope you enjoy it. Assalamu alaikum.
Here the Jews don't like Farrakhan, so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man. He wasn't great for me as a black person, but he was a great German. And he rose Germany up from the ashes of her defeat by the united force of all of Europe and America after the First World War. Now, I'm not proud of Hitler's evil against Jewish people, but that's a matter of record. He rose Germany up from nothing. Well, in a sense, you could say there's a similarity in that we are rising our people up from nothing. But don't compare me with your wicked killers. The President and the Senate has said there is no room in this society for hate and no place for the haters. We, the victims of America's hatred and bigotry, are now being charged with her crime. What I represent is truth, and America is saying to Farrakhan what it is written that the Jews said to Jesus when they rejected him. And Jesus responded, "You cannot understand my words because my words have no place in you." The Jews in that day wanted no truth to be told if it conflicted with their selfish desires. They did not care for the truth. They only wanted to hear that which made them comfortable in their web of lies and deceit. What crime have I committed that warrants the censure and repudiation of the entire government, religious and civic leadership? I don't smoke, I don't drink. I don't use drugs. I've never been arrested. I don't chase women, nor do I chase men. I have been a doer of good. I have been a doer of good among black people for 3 decades, doing a duty of civilizing and reforming black people, a duty which America failed to do. For which of the good works that I do in the name of my father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, do you stone or repudiate me? Now, beloved, I have a problem with Jewish people. And it is not because I'm hateful of Jewish people, not at all. But I have a problem because I am declaring to the world that they are not the chosen people of God. Listen. I am declaring to the world that you, the black people of America and the Western Hemisphere, are the lost, the rejected, the despised, the prodigal son, the lost sheep, the God's people. You are the people of God. Now, this is not a problem of anti-Semitism. This is a problem of theological viewpoint. Now, I will argue with any Jewish scholar, come on out of hiding. Don't stand behind the Negroes that you taught in theological cemetery school. No. You come out yourself and bring your arguments with you. You know that you cannot defend yourself, not with truth. I got the books on you. So, the best thing you can do is tell the people, I'm a hater, I'm a bigot, I'm an anti-Semite. Now, I only challenge the Jewish scholars. That's all. It's an intellectual thing. It's not violence. I just challenge the Jewish scholars. Show me the history of your suffering in Egypt for 400 years. I know you can't show it to me. That's all I'm saying. It's not violence. It's not anti-Semitism. It's a theological argument. That picture of Moses and the children of Israel in bondage under a wicked king named Pharaoh, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, and I believe it with all my heart, that it is a prophetic, symbolic picture of a people who in the last days of the world would be brought out of their native land and people into a strange land to suffer and be afflicted for 400 years. Look at some of the names that they call me. I've been called divisive, a Hitler lover. They even went so far as to call me in the Jewish paper this week, the new Hitler. A hater, a Klan lover, a con man, a bigot. And then they topped it all off, they called me the devil himself. Mr. Koch said I should burn in hell. What do you think the aim and the purpose is of their using these kind of words? What is the purpose of such words being written by the press and spoken in the public by men and women of renown? The aim is to discredit a man by the use of false terms without any just basis. The aim is to create an environment of hostility around that man that will keep the people from hearing what he has to say. If I'm a hater, who wants to be involved in hate? If I'm a bigot, who wants to be involved in bigotry? If I'm an anti-Semite, see, they're trying to discredit the power of my message by calling me names that will undercut my magnetic attraction in my own people. Evidently, it's not working. Look, calling me those names is designed to undercut any support that you might want to give me. It is to alienate people from me who might desire to help me. Then it is designed to isolate me. And then, of course, destroy my influence among black people. And then ultimately, the aim is to murder me. That's the ultimate aim. Now, I want want you all to reason with me. You won't hear me tonight call for killing anybody. But look, the idea of my being referred to as a Hitler is to plant in the minds of those who suffered from Hitler's mind and Hitler's work that we must never allow Hitler to come up again. So we must never allow this man, Farrakhan, to grow into power that he may do to us what Hitler did to us. Isn't that something? So, brothers and sisters, the germ of murder is already sown in the heart of Jews across this nation and across the world. And those who sympathize with Jews, they have a heart now filled with murder for Louis Farrakhan. So some person is going to think, as the scripture says, that they're doing God a favor and seek my death. Isn't that something? When I spoke in the forum in Los Angeles, 19,000 black people came out. The Jewish Defense League was outside chanting to kill Farrakhan. Kill Farrakhan. Yesterday on the news, we saw them asking the question, what do you want? We want Farrakhan. How do you want him? We want him dead. Now, you can't find one word in the text of my speeches that calls for death to Jews. But I am made to look like a total wicked man, and here are people calling for my death. Let me say to you, Mr. Press and Mr. Government of America, what do you think will happen to America if anything happens to me?
Brothers and sisters, for this special Savior's Day weekend, the Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2, has been discounted. The regular retail price is $20, but today it will be sold for $15, and the companion book, Jews Selling Blacks, will be reduced from $10 to $7. And I think that there are those from the Final Call newspaper that are in the rear of the auditorium that are prepared to make sure that you get your copy of these books and take them home today. Again, we want to thank you again for coming out and participating in this dialogue and this discussion. After I give way, we're going to have introductory remarks and an overview, an insider's point of view into this controversy by one of our panelists. From that, we will move quickly into a panel discussion and a moderated question and answer session. That will be followed up by another video montage that aims at communicating this message to our youth, particularly the hip-hop community. And at this point, I have the distinct honor and privilege of bringing to the microphone someone that I have admired for many years, someone that is a sister that is a warrior, that is a freedom fighter, that is a passionate defender of her people, is a passionate defender and helper of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and the kind of presenter that I don't care what subject she is addressing, you will walk away enlightened, motivated, and inspired. At this time, brothers and sisters, help me to welcome to the microphone our dear sister who is a national spokesperson for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is an attorney, our sister, Dr. Ava Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we give praise and thanks to Allah for His love and mercy upon humanity, giving us His prophets and messengers, among them Moses with the Torah, Jesus with the Gospel, Muhammad ibn Abdullah with the Holy Quran. I can never thank Allah enough for His intervention in our affairs in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi, who came here alone in 1930 and met one who was the grandson of slaves, the one we now know to be the promised Messiah and predicted Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I never saw or met Master Farad Muhammad. I never saw or met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but I was blessed as one suffering with a fatal illness, cancer, to come out in New York City and to hear a man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And as a result of that life-giving message, I stand here before you today grateful and humble to be here, Savior's Day 2011. I greet you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to be very brief because there is a great deal of material that our research team has to cover. And I want to say to you that I feel that my humble role here is more to get you to understand that we stand on the brink of our sovereignty. It was never meant and has never been our divine destiny to be in the unnatural circumstance that we are in, living here in the hells of North America. And so you and I are blessed, and yet with that blessing of living in the time of our exodus, there is a responsibility. The man that we just saw and heard on that screen, we know that Allah is working through him, because look at the energy we drew from a video of him. This is why the enemies of our liberation are compelled to place a wedge between him and his message. And so these men that you see on this stage today were moved, inspired by the divine spirit to follow their leader's message and go into the history books and to do research that they might prove to you and to the world through actual facts the truth of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and to protect not only Minister Farrakhan's message, but as I watched that tape, I determined in my mind to do all I can from this day forward to protect Minister Farrakhan's peace of mind. He does not deserve to have his creative energy drained and impeded dealing with the enemies of our liberation. We are in an epidemic awakening that is just gaining momentum. And it is about spiritual consciousness, the God within. Minister Farrakhan is laying the foundation for an evolutionary leap in the power of the human being, unlike anything, beloved, that we have ever known or imagined in 66 trillion years. But we have to be open-minded. Why does it matter what they say about Minister Farrakhan? It matters because he is at the epicenter of the awakening of humanity. They talked the other day about all that is going on in Egypt and Tunisia and places around the world. And they said, oh, President Obama came to Egypt and made a speech, and that got the people riled up. Before President Obama was there, Minister Farrakhan was there. In 1995, President Obama was in the crowd, October 16th, at the Million Man March. That is not urban legend. He wrote about being there in his book. And as he stood there among 2 million black men, Minister Louis Farrakhan lifted the ceiling off of his thinking, and he said to himself, not only can I be a U.S. Senator, I can run this entire country. These are just small examples of the impact and the profound effect of the light-giving sun of the message of Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so these brothers that you see before you have put together research that is not only profound in terms of the exposure of our treatment at the hands of certain Jewish people, but it also gives us knowledge of our own history in slavery, which has been so diluted, so watered down with series such as Roots and other portrayals of the experience that don't come near to defining for you and I what we have come through, that we might understand our strength. So through this study, the self gets repatterned. This is why these volumes of The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews are so critical to our libraries. When I was growing up, my parents kept Ebony Magazine, Sepia, The Defender, Call and Post, every black publication. There were few coming up in the 50s and 60s. There weren't many. But just the presence of knowledge in an environment affects the people in that environment. So we have to begin now to take down our collections of material that contain knowledge that has reached the end of its effectiveness and begin to replace it with knowledge that we need to go into the New World Order. And so we have to relate to each other on a higher level. And we will learn to do that today, because what the research team has done is help Minister Farrakhan to eliminate from the mathematical equation of our freedom that which does not belong there. And so we will, as my brother said, hurl truth at falsehood today until it knocks out its brains. Thank you so much for being here. Promise that you will be empowered at the end of this session. Assalamu alaikum.
Let's give Sister Minister Ava another round of applause. We are so honored to be able to work and feed from her spirit and her mind going forward in this campaign. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's desire is that this effort is not just for today or tomorrow, but this is an effort going forward to free not only him and the Nation of Islam from the nefarious charge of anti-Semitism, but to also provide freedom from the minds of our people, particularly our skilled professionals, our leaders, who have often come up against obstacles and hurdles as they desire to bring progress to our people, but they often come up against a hidden hand that presents obstacles, barriers to entry, so that their works are thwarted. We read in the scripture about the crucifixion of Jesus. And in Jesus' crucifixion, the crucifixion, if you notice, was not just designed to cause death, but it was also designed to cause humiliation. And one of the things that you will find in the Secret Relationship Volume 2 is all of the great black brothers and sisters, freedom fighters and liberators and professionals who tried to produce good for us, who were humiliated in the public by being called anti-Semitic whenever they saw it necessary to bring about critique against the actions of members of the Jewish community. So brothers and sisters, as we segue and move to the next portion of our program, I want to introduce the brother who will be carrying us forward from this point. He is our esteemed brother who is one of the co-chairs of the Gazebo Group or the Nation of Islam Research Group. He is a brother that has a distinguished background and record in business, in government, and in the Nation of Islam. And his history with the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan goes back to the days when Minister Farrakhan was the Minister of Temple Number 7 in New York City and the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Help me to receive at this time our big brother and friend, Brother Jackie Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
In the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, in the name of his Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and their holy reminder, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I greet you. Assalamu alaikum. Happy Savior's Day. Our goal and our purpose today is to not bash any people. Our goal and our purpose today is to present the facts. Some of you who may be a little bit older remember a television program by the name of Dragnet. And Jack Webb said, "Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts." So we're going to give you the facts, and we're going to ask you to draw your own conclusions from the truth that you will hear. Now, we have a certain set of questions for every panelist, and we're going to start with our educator, Brother Dr. Larry Muhammad. Dr. Larry has prepared for us a study guide. It's called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2. Now, let's be clear about something. This is a study guide. It is not a cheat sheet. You are to read the books. This will make it easier to read the books.
Right.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad defined the word knowledge. He said knowledge is the result of learning. It is a force or energy that makes its bearer overcome all obstacles and resistance. It is an attribute of God. Brother Larry, as the head of the University of Islam, the only black independent network of schools in the nation, do you believe that this book should be read in every school system in the country?
Assalamu alaikum. Well, since you put me on the spot, yes, I do believe. This question, in Muhammad University, Minister Farrakhan has asked us first to focus on making sure the children know and that we know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings is designed to make us become gods. And we know that that can only happen through study. And one of the interesting things about the Secret Relationship books, Volume 1 and 2, is that in this secret is the secret of God. And inshallah, after we dialogue and discuss today, we'll start to see more of this. But in this secret, you have two people, one who claims to be the children of Israel and one who is in fact the children of Israel. And that's a very significant point of discussion. And I don't think we have quite joined on to Minister Farrakhan in really taking this to the world. because this is the question that the world is confused over, along with the identity of Jesus, and all of this is wrapped up into one. So in this study, for us, for children, and in schools, and obviously in school, and we all go to school, all throughout the world, even in the poorest countries, they make some type of effort to learn. They make some type of effort to go to school. So through the school systems and through study, we can begin teaching children of all walks of life the truth and the reality. And I don't know about you, my introduction to this history of slavery that black people went through, well, there really was no introduction. It wasn't covered at all in school. And the only introduction we got was through Roots. And when we got to school, we were all so embarrassed, nobody talked about it. And that was a school of predominantly whites. We were all embarrassed, white and black, because no one had taught any of us about it. And until I got to college, that was the first time that I had actually had an actual class to learn about slavery. But the final answer that I'll give to Brother Jackie's question is yes, through studying this in schools and through study guides and study course packets, people will begin to understand that secret that's been kept hidden from the world. And the minister asked in the video, what is the aim and purpose? And in the definition, which is in the course packet that Brother Jackie held up, the first definition defined is secret. And it says, kept private or not revealed. Information known only to a special group, conducted with or marked by hidden aims or methods. So there's a goal here by a group of people, and it's centered around this relationship, this secret relationship. So that is my answer, Brother Jackie. Through the school systems and through education, we can begin to slowly peel that layer over our eyes. Thank you.
I have another question for you, Brother Larry, but before I ask you the question, I would like to remind everyone that the assembled group that you see here today, we have collectively written, I think, close to 40 articles? 43 articles. Those articles have been circulated not just in the Final Call on the internet, but around the world. What we are saying is that we feel so confident and comfortable with what we have learned from the book and the examples that we have been given from the minister, that we will challenge any scholar anywhere on the planet with what we know. So that's not to be arrogant, it's only to say that we are confident in what we know. The minister asked the question on June 26 in Atlanta. He said, don't you want to know what happened to you?
Come on now, Brother Jackie.
Don't you want to know? Well, we want you to know. Second question, Brother Larry, is this. This book has been written in English. Should this book be written in Arabic, in Chinese, in Japanese, in Vietnamese, in French, in Spanish, in Portugal, and circulate in the school system throughout the earth?
Yes, sir. That's the quick answer. Absolutely, yes. And we're way behind schedule, brothers and sisters, on taking our message and what we have been given and what we have learned from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan. We're behind schedule on taking that to the world. You know what I said in the last response about how we responded in school, children all around the world are learning in schools. And there are many nations around the earth that will take this right into their schools without any hesitation. There are many people who are thirsting to learn this knowledge and have this knowledge that we have. And so it's not something that just we have, and it's not our job to just give it to one another and share it. It's a responsibility to go throughout the world. So that is something that we plan and that we have to do to translate it into other languages. And in the recent trip of President Hu from China, they were discussing something called the principle of protectionism. And it's something that is dealt with in the secret relationship. And in other countries, they have been practicing principles, and they have knowledge that with this knowledge of this secret relationship will really it'll put a capsule on what they have been doing. And in China, they signed an agreement with the United States that they wouldn't practice protectionism, which means that they won't be a closed society. But the Jewish community, and you'll find it in the book, they teach this and they practice this, and every civilization practices this in order for them to become a strong civilization. But in our community and what we're taught to not practice this. And so, yes, they can sign an agreement that they won't practice it because they're already a strong nation and among the strongest nations of the world. But in their building of the Great Wall of China, it was a sign to the world that they didn't want anyone to come in because they were practicing protectionism, and they were teaching their people and training their people to be independent people. And now they can come out, if you excuse the expression, come out to play because they are powerful people now. And this is something that we have to do. We have to begin to practice these principles. And in this research, we not only learn the history of it, but we learn how to practice it.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to have another question for Brother Larry later on, and he's going to talk about the petition that he is circulating.
Yes, sir.
Sister Ava, you are the author of 5 books. This is the latest book, Real Love. There is a part of the book that deals with the media. The part of the book that deals with the media talks about a Jewish businessman by the name of Mr. Oakes.
Yes.
Mr. Oakes used the profits from slavery to purchase the New York Times. At that time, the New York Times was used as a means by which we were degraded and dehumanized. He called us niggers. He called us coons. There is another publication, the New York Post, that is similarly used to degrade black people. There was a cartoon that had President Arafat pass his gaseous waste, and they depicted Reverend Al Sharpton as bending over, inhaling it. There was another cartoon that had 2 New York City policemen shoot a chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee was referred to as President Obama. Sister Ava, are you aware of any black publication? There are approximately 240 black newspapers in this country. Are you aware of any black publication that has so depicted members of the Jewish community?
Not at all. The history of our people in the wake of 4 centuries of enslavement is not, as Dr. Larry is pointing out, fully understood by us. Had we, coming out of slavery, just been left alone,
That's right. That's right.
not even given the 40 acres and a mule,
That's right.
but had we just been left alone, the progress we would have made would far exceed what we are experiencing now. Proof of that, Tulsa, Oklahoma,
That's right.
the Black Wall Street, Rosewood in Florida, and many other communities where as long as we were left alone, we flourished. The Negro Baseball League, which was an industry which provided us with an economy every effort we have ever made to come together in a natural way. It is natural for a people to benefit from its own talents and its own productivity. But the propaganda campaign against our legitimate aspirations dates back to Reconstruction. And as you will read in The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, as Brother Jackie just pointed out, not only Adolph Ox and others, but the presence of the Jews in the South is going to be a shock to many of us. Now, I have a law degree, yes, but my undergraduate degree is in history. History major with a Bachelor of Arts in History. What I learned in this book, I never saw or heard at any point in my education in this country, because this required digging on the part of this research team. And when I sat down and began to read this book, I was not only shocked and appalled, but I was relieved, in all honesty, because I know that now that the truth has come to light, it is not days but hours before we will finally be free of this. It was the New York Post in 1994, after Minister Farrakhan at the Jacob Javits Center announced the Million Man March. In March of 1994, several months later, there was a headline in the New York Post: "Widow pins Malcolm murder on Farrakhan." This was the first of what was intended to be a 16-part series blaming, through alleged research, Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam for the assassination of Malcolm X. It was specifically designed to arouse hatred toward the minister from his own people, whom he spent his life saving. And had they been allowed to persist in that, that is what would have resulted from it. And so the Nation of Islam filed a $4.4 billion lawsuit against the New York Post, and most people lack clear knowledge of an understanding of what that case was about. But this was a Rupert Murdoch-owned tabloid, the same Rupert Murdoch from Australia.
That's right.
Not a U.S. citizen, from Australia, who also owns the majority of Fox News Network, which is a tool of the destruction of our people. And by taking them into court, we stopped them from any further articles on this subject and took that case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. We lost the case because Minister Farrakhan was determined to be a public figure. And in a public figure defamation case, you have to prove intent. But as Minister Farrakhan, and that we could not prove the intent, because the law is written that way to protect the Jewish-dominated media. Well, how can I prove, in order to prove that they intended malice, as opposed to, well, the widow, look at this, the widow of Malcolm said it. We didn't say it. We merely printed what she said. But if you go and watch the interview on television that she gave, they lifted language out and misrepresented it. And so all the way through until this day, our people are the victims of a massive and consistent propaganda campaign. And the last point I will make is in 1985, when Minister Farrakhan went into New York City, the Jews attempted to derail that event. Power at last, forever. Why? Because he was introducing to the black community the clean and fresh product line. And this was to be the first major move toward economic self-sufficiency since the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam had begun. And if you go back and research, you will see that every major news outlet in America, starting with the New York Times, New York Post, Daily News, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, every paper in America, Chicago Tribune, Sun Times, all of them printed identical stories. And they were all attacking Minister Louis Farrakhan as an anti-Semite to attempt, as he said on that screen, to get between him, his message, and the people.
I'm so glad we have Sister Ava, Sister Attorney Ava on our side. It is also probably sometimes forgotten by many of us that Sister Ava is, to the best of my knowledge, the only female imam in Islam in the world.
That's right.
Brother Cedric Muhammad, you have written 3 books. The Entrepreneurial Secret of Starting a Business Without a Bank Loan, Collateral, or Revenue, and 2 other companion books. Now, I'm not holding these books up to help the brothers' sales because the sales are doing well by themselves. I'm holding these materials up for us to let you know who we have among us. Okay? Brother Cedric,
Yes, sir.
you are an internationally recognized economist. You have consulted to African leaders on the continent. You also were a friend of Jude Wanniski, who was a personal friend of Minister Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Wanniski had expressed a great deal of respect for the Nation of Islam and Minister Farrakhan. How do you think Mr. Wanniski would respond to the secret relationships?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Jackie, for the question. For those who don't know, Jude Wanniski was a former associate editor of the Wall Street Journal. He was an advisor to Jack Kemp. He advised President Reagan prior to his running for president, and numerous world leaders. He's also an individual who accurately said there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq before the war. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave me these words regarding Jude Wanniski, and I'd like to read them in answering your question. On April 4th, 2008, the minister said, "In Jude Wanniski, I found an honorable man whose heart, mind, and soul yearn to discover truth and destroy lies and falsehoods. It is out of that spirit that he studied me and was passionate in his defense of me to those who form their opinions based on the media and not on facts and truth. I shall always be grateful to Almighty God Allah for his friendship." It just so happens that Jude Wanniski is a Caucasian Roman Catholic. Jude Wanniski, before he met the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, reviewed hundreds of hours worth of videotape. He read the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's books, and he read everything that had been said by the negative detractors of Minister Farrakhan, including the writings of the Anti-Defamation League. One aspect of his study included a review of all of Minister Farrakhan's legendary appearances on the Phil Donahue show, which I know many of you have some of those old tapes at home. The Anti-Defamation League inaccurately attributed a remark to Minister Farrakhan that they said came from one of those appearances. Jude Wanniski, with the inquisitive mind that he had, inquired with Minister Farrakhan, reviewed all of those appearances, and did not find the quote that they inaccurately attributed to him anywhere in the interview. He then sent the tapes and word to the Anti-Defamation League, and he asked them, where is it in these appearances the quote that you attribute to Minister Farrakhan? They could not answer, and they removed that from their public literature of propaganda against Minister Farrakhan. Now keep in mind, this is a man who was advising world leaders, multinational corporations. He was involved in a public debate with Mayor Koch in the New York Post over Minister Farrakhan. He sent the same litmus test to Mayor Ed Koch. Mayor Ed Koch said, "I have no further interest in this matter." It is when we have that kind of fearlessness, when we are willing to look at facts and truth and not media, when we're willing to pick up a book like this, that I will say for the record is the most meticulously researched book in terms of documentation I have ever read in my life. When we're willing to look at over 1,800 footnotes and say not Cedric Muhammad or not the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but Dr. Mark Greenberg said, Arnold Shankman said, Leonard Rogoff said, Kenneth Hoffman said. See, that's the technique that's used. We say something, we present a truth, and they say, you're a hater.
Right.
You said it. No,
Right.
it's in your library.
That's right.
It was one of your scholars, one of your rabbis, and these are some of the most highly respected individuals and sources that you could ever quote. So, to answer your question in conclusion, in a small way, Jude Winniski to me represents a form of a standard for any person, whether they are Jewish, Gentile, black, brown, red, yellow, on how to approach this subject. Take every single thing that has been written negatively about this book and then get it for yourself. And then look through the 1,800 footnotes and the beautifully written narrative. Watch the 3 Who Are the Real Children of Israel tapes and messages of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And you will, it'll almost be like a revelation. There is not 1 ounce of truth in their lives in how this book has been represented in the minister's words. So take confidence. When you pick up this book, you are picking up one of the best resources in your life, and it defends itself and it defends the truth.
Thank you. Brother Dr. Ridgely Muhammad, you have written 3 books. The Science and Business of Farming, I Will Not Apologize, The Resurrection of the Master Architect. As the head of the Nation of Islam's farming system and a scholar, I'd like to ask you a question. There was an article in last week's edition of USA Today about an emerging Asian farming system, where Asian farmers are now beginning to make their way through the farming industry in America. At the same time, however, there is a dearth or a lack of farming among our people. Based on what you have read in Secret Relationships, is there a relationship?
Assalamu alaikum. Well, you know, as Minister Ava spoke and is talked about in the book, you know, we never received that 40 acres and a mule after slavery. And in fact, instead of them giving us 40 acres and a mule, they brought over foreigners, European so-called Jews, and they had what's called the Homestead Act, where they gave them our 40 acres and a mule. And they would not even allow us to purchase certain types of land. We can only purchase the worst type of land. And in some places, it was completely illegal for us to purchase land. You think of the black codes as something about drinking at a water fountain. The black codes were a set of laws that prevented us. It was illegal for us to go into business. Here we are in America, capitalism, entrepreneurship, free enterprise. But they set up a set of laws inspired by the people who call themselves Jews, promulgated by them to keep us in a virtual slavery. But even after all of that, by 1910, we had bought 16 million acres of farmland. 16 million. Now, the government of the United States has made a tacit agreement with the South to help them get that land back. You know about the black farmers lawsuit, and we're going to have Gary Grant, the president of BIFA, on our panel tomorrow on the Ministry of Agricultural panel. They had to fight the government to stop them from foreclosing on black farmland at the same time that they were inviting Asians to America to farm. You may not know this, but for China to participate in the World Trade Organization, which they did in the year 2000, they had to guarantee a removal of 10 million farmers per year. Where are these farmers going to go? So now they're bringing them into America, and while they're taking the land from the black farmers, and we're partying and we got EBT and food stamps, they gave us food stamps and they took away our land. Now we eat all the food from the white man's hand. They're bringing them over to participate in farming, and they're continually foreclosing on black farms, not anything that they gave us, but what we bought, our own sweat and blood. So, they continue. They continue. They continue. Assalamu alaikum.
Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Brother Dimitrik, you are not only a student minister, but you are also a prison minister for the Nation of Islam. There are something like 2.1 million prisoners in the United States, and in the age category of between 25 and 29, I believe, over 10-12% of those are black male prisoners. How do you see this book being used to affect those brothers who are incarcerated?
Assalamu alaikum.
Islam, sir.
First of all, Brother Jackie, I would just have to concur with Brother Cedric to talk about the immense value of this book, not just to inmates, but to all of our people, our entire community. You know, part of the process of reform and rehabilitation involves an analysis of what put us in the condition in the first place.
That's right.
And many of us, including the inmate population, we know something of slavery, we know something of Jim Crow, we know something of the period of lynching. But you know, there's an old saying in business and negotiation that the devil is in the details.
That's right.
And when we read the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, there is an exposure of the details of what happened to us,
That's right.
what set us at naught. Most of our brothers and sisters who enter into the penal system come out of an impoverished community. But yet there's never been an informed analysis as to how did black people whose labor, whose skill, whose expertise built the wealth of America, the world's greatest superpower, how are we today in a permanent underclass situation?
Go ahead.
Who are the players?
Come on.
Who helped us to become undone?
Go ahead.
Who helped to destroy us? Who helped to put us in a condition that where they could say that we were 3/5 of a people? In the Jewish community, they make great efforts to not just only educate their own people, but to educate the world as to what exactly happened to them.
That's right.
And it produces sympathy for them.
Right.
It produces opportunities for them.
That's right.
It opened doors for them.
That's right.
And it causes people to look upon them with admiration for what they have accomplished in spite of their circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So what I find in the secret relationship between blacks and Jews is a tool that we can use, as I said, for the inmate population, for those in the public educational system, for those of us in whatever sphere of activity we are involved in, to understand what happened to us so that we can say like the Jews say, never again.
That's right.
We not only want to condemn our own self-inflicted pain, but we want to condemn evil and wickedness wherever we find it.
That's right.
And no community should be viewed as off limits. If there were Jews, if there were Christians, if there were Protestants, if there were Muslims, if there were Africans who helped put us in this condition, they all should be identified not for the purpose of mockery or hatred or vitriol, but for the purpose of understanding and having mutual respect and being able to dialogue on what happened so we can determine as equals the way forward.
That's right.
Assalamu alaikum.
Mr. Abe Foxman, who is the executive director of the Anti-Defamation League of Brene Brown, was on the radio program about a month or two ago on, what's the brother's program name? Mike Dyson. Mike Dyson. And he made this statement. He said that the Jewish people only played a little role in the enslavement of our people. Now, this question is open for whatever panelist or wants to address it, but how do we know that the Jewish people did not play a little role? How do we know that they were at the center of our dehumanization? How do we know that they were at the center of our being made the victims of the most insidious form of slavery known to man? How do we know that he was incorrect? Brother Sultan Muhammad. Brother Sultan. Brother Sultan has traveled with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to over 70 countries in the world. He has a whole lot of frequent flyer points that he will want to share with his brother. But the question that we have, Brother Sultan, and Sultan is also a member of the research team, by the way, and a member of the E-team. Man, how many hats do you wear?
He's a big one.
But help us understand the role that they played and the fact that Mr. Foxman is not necessarily being 100% truthful in what he has said publicly on the air about their role.
Yes, sir. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. That was something that Sister Ava again said that I think, that was something that Sister Ava said a few minutes ago that I think, new thinking spawns new cliches. And she said that Minister Farrakhan is the epicenter of the awakening of the world. I think that's a wonderful cliche, and I can prove it.
Go ahead.
However, this is only parenthetic, and we want to answer that question that he asked, which I hope somebody would ask. But I have to say that I have traveled with the minister, by God's grace and by your permission, to over 70 countries. I have listened to the minister speak to people speaking many different languages. I have heard the minister being translated. I even once heard the minister being translated, and the minister turned to the man and said, "Tell them what I said." I can't tell you, the man almost had a heart attack. But I have heard the minister asked maybe 500 to 1,000 questions. Not only have I heard him answer every question, but most importantly, he answered every question profoundly. That's your man. Now, on this question, I had hoped that someone would ask that question. I have something that I would like to read from the book, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
May I?
Yes, sir.
I had it ready just in case. Now, I don't need these glasses. I'm only putting them on so that this can see me clearly. Okay. Now, this is from a section of the book called 40 Acres and the Jews.
Go ahead.
It says that Jews were well established in the American South is clear, and though their numbers were small, they performed critical roles as lawmakers and civic leaders within the plantation culture. Two false but enduring notions by now have been put to rest. Number one, that blacks actually experienced any form of freedom, justice, or equality in the South after the Civil War, and two, that Jews avoided settling in the South because of its culture of extreme racism.
Come on.
It's not true. As a people with strong mercantile roots and experience, Jews came to the South with a mind to reorder and strengthen its economic underpinnings. I only had the one hand. I did it. It says that, in fact, this focus was built into their ancient Talmudic codes and institutions. The Jewish temple in ancient Babylonia had vast wealth at its disposal and constituted the richest agricultural, industrial, commercial, and financial single unit within the community. It was the largest landowner, the greatest industrialist, the richest banker, and the biggest slaveholder in every city of the country. The profits in cotton were stunning. In 1864, when a horse could be purchased for $25, an acre of prime farmland could be bought for less than $1.
Come on.
A congressman's salary was $420. And a small commercial building could be acquired for $600.
Come on.
A single 500-pound bale of cotton could reap a profit of $900. It is regarded by many white Southerners with religious zeal and inescapably accompanies every nostalgic journey through the old South in culture, but cotton's role in the American experiment is far more important than Americans have been willing to admit. According to a recent book by Gene Tittel, a financial manager in Solomon Brothers and Morgan Stanley. You've heard of Solomon Brothers and Morgan Stanley, have you not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We know we're talking about what? Money.
Money.
And nothing but money. Cotton was a leading determinant of American history in the 19th century. It prolonged slavery, and slave-produced cotton caused the Civil War. Cotton spawned two revolutions. The Industrial Revolution and the American Civil War. It was the first sophisticated global business. For 134 years, between 1803 and 1937, cotton was America's largest, and this slave-grown staple was the single biggest engine of Western expansion. Cotton was at the very foundation of the American economy, and it drove the exploding textile and clothing industries in New England and turbo-fueled the economic and industrial growth worldwide. Without cotton, slavery in a new world was very likely headed for extinction. Now, I just want to show you something very briefly, because it's important that we have a better perspective of history and a better perspective ourselves. I have two charts that you will be able to find in this great book. Now, this chart in particular just shows these were just different Jews in business. Now that's one page here. Now this is a very short period of time. This is only the early 1800s up to about the 1920s. Lasted a long time. And I have back and front here. These are all, you can't even see it, but these are individual lines, and it goes down maybe as many as 40 on each page. Now, there is another list like this that is right here. This is about banking and bankers in the South during this period when people said they were really not too participatory in slavery.
Come on.
This is almost 300 bankers.
Listen.
300 Jewish bankers. And the point in making the point is that we need to have a more realistic idea, because today, one 500-pound bale of cotton would have netted for the sharecropper 43 cents. But for those who sold it, the Jews who were in business, they would make as much as $212 per bale. Now, I think something like that exists today because I understand in the record business, I think an album is about $14.95, and I think the entertainers, the ones who do all the work, who have the I think they go about a nickel. So let's take a look in every aspect of life that we are involved in today, and let's see what the connection is.
Go ahead.
Minister Farrakhan has been seen by, read about, heard of on the radio, seen in public speeches or on television by over 110 million people worldwide. He is expressing a truth that nobody else, that you can point out, or your children can point out, or your children's children can point out, that's having this kind of global impact with just his mouth. There is therefore a reason why it is in the interest of our enemies to silence his mouth. What we want you to have an appreciation for, number one, is the human being that God has blessed to be in your presence. That which that human being is teaching the human family, and that which the human family is responding to. Think back for a second now, when you saw the report on Egypt, what did they call for?
Go ahead. Million Man March. That's right.
The answer is they called for a million man march. Where did they get that from?
Wow. Wow.
And just as in our case, the minister calls for 1 million, and damn near 2 million show up.
Wow.
Now, Brother Jerome, you have traveled extensively in Africa and the Middle East, and you are a writer for The Final Call, and you have written other publications. The question that we have for you is, because you are someone who is very familiar with the work of W.E.B. Du Bois, what is the connection between Dr. Du Bois's work, who was one of the most prolific leaders, prolific writers, prolific thinkers in 20th century America? What is the connection between Dr. Du Bois and the information in that book?
Well, in a way of a kind of a promotion, in the upcoming Final Call, I think in next week or two, there's a pretty extensive piece that I wrote based on some research that I had done concerning Dr. Du Bois and what has been written in The Secret Relationship concerning the Simon. It was written in The Secret Relationships about Du Bois' discussion around sharecropping and Jewish involvement. Well, the Simon Wiesenthal Center recently attacked Du Bois's book, his seminal book, Souls of Black Folks, and called him an anti-Semite. Now, my piece, and I want to read just a summary of it, and hopefully you'll get the final call. Some months ago, Simon Wiesenthal Center, motivated by a desire to discredit the authenticity of Secret Relationships Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2, and in the process to trash Dr. Du Bois' scholarship in his renowned work, Souls of Black Folk, made the claim against the scholar turned activist whose prescriptions for black development took center stage in the pages of NAACP Crisis magazine, at one time been under the influence of genteel anti-Semitism he absorbed at Harvard and German universities, is not only unscrupulous, but as Dr. Tony Montero, now Dr. Tony Montero has a PhD in sociologist and is a Du Boisian scholar who I interviewed. Now, Tony said that what the Simon Wiesenthal Center said about Dr. Du Bois is a bunch of horse crap. I mean, he used a little stronger language, but you know, I won't use that here. the Simon Wiesenthal Center attempts to use Du Bois' original writings in Souls of Black Folk concerning the exploitation of blacks in the South by Jewish immigrants from Russia to label him a reformed anti-Semite are actually debunked by the U.S. government 1901 report of the Industrial Commission on Immigration that states, and this is in secret relationship in one of those many footnotes that Brother Cedric had mentioned.
That's right.
States 9/10 of the storekeepers in Dowry County, thank you, brother, are Jewish merchants. I actually found this among one of course, the footnotes. The original printing of Souls of Black Folks, disputed by the Wiesenthal Center, claimed that blacks had been ruined and savaged into a red waste out of which only a Yankee or a Jew could squeeze more blood from death-cursed tenants. The language of Souls of Black Folks captures the era and the circumstances under which black folks that reside in Doherty County, I have a problem with that word, state that they live. The book, which was considered the most important work in classic English produced at the time, and also caused Langston Hughes to single it out, the Bible of his earliest memories of written words. In addition, in the chapter titled Of the Black Belt, the U.S. government report gives credence to Jewish merchants' exploitation of black planters. Dr. Montero, this is the brother I interviewed, response says it all. So what he, Du Bois, observed in a lot of ways gives us anti-dotal turned out to be more substantive. So Du Bois thought to take that information out of the 50th anniversary book of Souls of Black Folks, because he didn't know if it was true or not, and he didn't want to be accused of being an anti-Semite. But the information uncovered by Souls of Black Folk found that Du Bois was actually true, and the anecdotal information that he discovered and wrote about in Souls of Black Folk. Du Bois observed the exploitation of blacks by Yankees and Jews. This is Du Bois speaking in Souls of Black Folk. But in the 50th anniversary, and this is the point I was trying to make, edition of Souls of Black Folk, he removed the references toward Jews because Du Bois, who worked alongside many Jews, and in the late 1930s, doing his travels in Germany, discovered Jews being oppressed, didn't want his work, according to Dr. Montero, to be construed as anti-Semitism in his use of anecdotal information that he couldn't actually prove. If Du Bois had allowed the above words to stand alone, one could claim as insufficient, remarked Montero. What is clear, and this is what he was getting at, said, this is Montero speaking again, is a new form of exploitation. This is Du Bois talking. It was more severe, Du Bois again, than the earlier form of slave labor. It was more along capitalist lines. And as Dr. Montero added, more clarity to this all but forgotten link that short-circuited African-American emancipation and thwarted the possibility of black economic parity. He also explained, under the new system of exploitation, that cotton production increased under Jim Crow as opposed to under slavery. Subsequent editions of Souls of Black Folks contain the additional script. So some of the subsequent books that came out as a result of the 50th anniversary excluded what I said concerning Jews' involvement in that county in the South, but some of them kept that information in it. A common companion argument made by the Wiesenthal Center report, Hate Propaganda Masquerading as History, Volume 2 of Louis Farrakhan's The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, is that Jewish merchants in the South were sympathetic toward their black consumers. This is a bizarre claim because of the mountain of evidence stating otherwise. To claim fair treatment by all Jewish merchants because of the benevolence of a few is as absurd as applying the anti-Semitism label to all African Americans, something the Wiesenthal Center report actually tries to do. To suggest, as the Wiesenthal report does, that blacks nationwide show higher levels of anti-Semitism than do whites based on African American criticism of Jewish errant behavior is like calling someone an unfit parent because they reprimand their child when he or she is wrong.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Let me
Oh,
finish. Okay. The Wiesenthal report is actually supposed to be a serious critique of the mostly Jewish scholars and rabbis and other academicians like Du Bois that are contained in the book Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2. The trouble is the report makes claims like good treatment by a few represents an entire group that can never be substantiated. I don't think that claim can be made, said, this is Dr. Montero again. In fact, as he points out, oppressing blacks was a part of the whitening process. This was the whole point. As other immigrant groups like the Irish, the Italians, the Poles, and other Russians wanted to be accepted, and accepted mean being white. That means oppressed black folk. That's how you get your badge of being a white man,
right.
Honorary white person in America.
That's right.
Being specific, Dr. Montero said, he highlighted Irish oppression. The Irish suffered savage oppression at the hands of the English, but that did not stop them from being savagely oppressive and violent toward African Americans. He also mentioned the fact that there is much written about the above. This includes a recent scholarship by Karen Braskin entitled How Jews Became White Folks.
Yes, sir.
Something, but Jackie,
Yes, sir.
I just want to put what he said in perspective. That county that he couldn't pronounce properly, Dougherty County, is 19 miles from Muhammad Farms. That whole area, Dougherty County and Terrell County, was called the Egypt of the Confederacy. And when I first moved down there, I noticed a lot of Jewish synagogues in Albany. And I didn't know anything about what was in the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, Volume 2, about how 9/10 of the stores in Dougherty County, Albany, Georgia, were Jewish. So now I know, but I did not know. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has bought farmland in the epicenter of the Egypt of the Confederacy, and we're going to expose who were the real Pharaoh.
That's great. Nice piece.
As a young Muslim growing up, Mosque number 7, I was always intrigued by the messenger's admonition to us to study history. The messenger had us study historians like J.A. Rogers and others. One of the interesting things about studying the books that the messenger gave us to study is that when I went to college, they didn't give us those books to read. And when I began to bring in people like J.A. Rogers and they began to show me their books, we had a little bit of a conflict. What we discovered, or what I discovered, is that many of the books that they had us read were written by Jewish historians, not by black historians.
That's right.
So if we wanted to learn our history, we had to go through their minds. Brother Shad, Jews have been successful in hiding their hands in the oppression that we have been suffering. Brother Shad is the assistant editor of The Final Call, and we have one of the best editions of the paper that I have seen. So to Brother Shad and to the editor, Brother Richard Muhammad, thank you very much for this. I mean, just feeling this paper,
Right.
you feel the quality of the paper.
That's right.
So Brother Shad, can you help us out with that answer?
Thank you, Brother Jackie. First, while you mentioned the final call, I also want to thank the hard-working brothers and sisters in the field who take the final call to the people in the streets of Mississippi and these areas where they need to know this information. We do what we do so that you can do what you do, and we're very thankful for your efforts in that way. We don't ever want to forget that. We have a job, and so do you. So we thank you, and we're your servants. I'm so glad that we got to that portion of the discussion, because what Brother Sultan is saying, and really all the members of the research department, what we're doing is delivering just the facts. And when you look at this information and you begin to study this information, you realize that these books, this book in particular, is going to be responsible for a paradigm shift in the way that the history of black people in America will be studied from here on. It will never be able to be lies promulgating as history. There will never be these types of false truths or falsehoods sent out into the public, and they just go out there and stand as truth. And it's so funny that Brother Sultan mentioned about them hiding their influence. They always want to say it's just a small few. Well, they didn't even want to admit to the small few until we began this type of research. Because prior to that, they said there was no interaction with Jews and slavery. So you see the importance of history. Now, I just want to say that when you control the media, and I'm seeing that working in media, you can shape world affairs. How do you do that? You're writing about events that have taken place. And those individuals who read your newspapers and listen to you on the news and hear your commentary, that shapes whatever happened in their mind. And what they read about us in the newspapers of that time shaped the way they saw us in their minds. Now, we may be accused of being many things, but this cannot be called hate literature. Let me tell you something about the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, Volume 1. Currently, it is in 115 libraries in the world. It is in the libraries of Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Brandeis, the Yeshiva University, the Jewish Theological Seminary, Brown University, Stanford, and the Cambridge in London. Now, there's something about what's contained in these books that they are talking about, and they're talking about it as if it's hate literature, but they think so much about the historical archives that they have it in their libraries. So I want you to think about that. And I also see that with you sitting here in this plenary session, you are following the instructions of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he said he wanted to establish a reader nation. He wanted to get rid of illiteracy, and what Brother Larry has done with the study guides, which is for the Secret Relationship Volume 1 and Volume 2, which will be available when you leave today, is in that way. So we can't allow them to continue. Let me tell you a little bit about some of the facts in this book, okay? Just a little bit. Here's what our research uncovered about these small groups. In a 1976 pamphlet titled American Jews, Their Story, by the Anti-Defamation League, it presents 13 pioneers of the American Jewish community, 10 of whom we have definitively linked to the slave trade. The other 3 that we don't necessarily know about, they weren't abolitionists.
Well,
that's for sure. See, when you hear this being sent forth, that we were always your friends, and we work with you, and we were always there. But now we're starting to look and see that this isn't actually the actual facts. It's not true. And how do we know it's not true? Because in this book, for some of you, I know 512 pages is powerful, I know. But this little small book right here has newspaper articles from all over the South, where you see the names of people selling black families, children, and babies. So through our research, I'm from the city, so I don't know a whole lot about cotton picking and things like that. I'm glad I don't. But I looked in there, and we saw how you see a lot of the old pictures, and you see little children in the fields. Is that correct? That's right. Well, the reason why you see the little children is because their small baby fingers were better equipped and more efficient to get in and pick the seeds out of the bowl to get the product out of there. So when you see that, you have to think about it in context. You say today, well, our youth, they're not serious. The youth would be more serious if you taught them the serious history. If you taught them the serious history, they would be serious, but we haven't done so. They talk about the business, and I'm wrapping up, I'm sorry. They talk about business. Well, we just did what anybody else did. Well, you were running businesses while we were getting lynched and hung and beaten. And on page 421 of this book right here, just so you can know what's going on, you have a picture of a Jewish businessman receiving an award from the Ku Klux Klan.
Come on.
Now, I don't care how many black people you see who interact with white people, etc. You don't see no black people getting awards from the KKK. But you see this going on in here, so we have to look and understand and know that what Minister Farrakhan is talking to us about and what he's asked us to do in working with him in this sustained campaign is absolutely what we need to do to free our people once and for all, to free Minister Farrakhan from the false allegations of anti-Semitism, and to free the nation of Islam from that dastardly appellation, and you're a part of that. Thank you.
We are at the point where we only have time for one more question, and we're going to show you a video that I think you will really love. I think the year was around the early 1980s or late 1970s. Minister Farrakhan was giving a speech at the University of Maryland, and it was on education. And he defined the word education as coming from a Greek word, eduko. He said it means to come out of darkness into light. Brother Dr. Larry, will this book take our people out of darkness into light?
Good question.
Assalamu alaikum. Absolutely. And I'm getting in the habit of having these one-word answers first, but absolutely. You know, in learning, if I could just ask a question, how many of you going through school enjoyed studying history? Just raise your hand. Okay. It looks like less than a fourth, maybe, of the audience, if that. History has been treated as a sideshow in learning.
Come on.
And you know, I was looking at a textbook that we have at Muhammad University, because from being involved with this research and this team, we're going to start looking at everything that we use in our learning, in the learning process, and eventually start to write and develop our own. All praise is due to Allah. But in education and in learning, you know, when you find the truth, that light sparks. And all of us in here have had that experience when we were learning something, and all of a sudden, you know, you were tired, and all of a sudden you're awake. You know, all of a sudden you're excited. All of a sudden you're enthusiastic about life. And history, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, history is above all our studies, the most attractive and best qualified to reward our research, as it develops the springs and motives of human actions and displays the consequence of circumstances which operates most powerfully on the destinies of the human being. That was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1936. You said a grandchild of slaves. The one who Allah has lifted up as the God in as an example for us. But this is very powerful. And for us to leave here today and not become a part of this campaign and this sustained effort that the minister launched last June is a tragedy. You know, we have to leave here and take this history serious and look at it in a way and begin to treat it in a way where it is life-giving. And just the little bit that you've heard on this panel, it sparked life in you. And when we read it and study it, it'll spark life in us, and it'll spark life, and as the minister says, creativity in the children. And it's the lack of creativity that has our people in the condition they're in today.
Right.
So we're standing around waiting for a job when we can create a job.
That's right.
We're standing around looking at the paper to see what the next economic trend is when we've been given the blueprint to develop the economic trends. So history is the solution, but once we have that as a foundation, of course, Minister Farrakhan says our focus is math and science, but at least then we have that light and that knowledge to go on and study whatever we want to study and master it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a million of these questions, but unfortunately, we do not have the time to go into it. However, if you go to the website, blacksandjews.com, you will see the results of some of our works. You will see questions that you may have had on your mind answered. Please join me in thanking our distinguished panel for their contributions today. Okay. With that, thank you very much. With that, we will turn the program back over to Brother Dimitri.
Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, we're going to move swiftly as our time is upon us to go into the portion where we give you the opportunity to become a part of this sustained effort of freeing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from the prison of public opinion. So to help guide us in the things that we can do in our call to action, receive at this time the assistant editor of the Final Call newspaper, Brother Ashab Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, are we doing the video now? Okay. Some of you may have seen this edition. How many of you already have this copy of the Final Call? Very good. Okay, if you don't have that, don't leave without your commemorative edition and get more than one. On page 13, you have an initiative that was started by our great educator, Dr. Larry Muhammad, who talked to us regarding what he spoke about earlier, which was making this something that is required to be studied in the schools of the United States of America. And so, you'll see in here, on this page, it has the wording, the letter, and things you can do. And we're going to get to, because I know you're sitting in your seats right now saying, well, I'm not a writer. I can't write 512 books. I don't speak any languages. I don't have a huge business networking Rolodex where I can just call somebody and have them donate millions of dollars. But there are things that you can do in your life right now to assist us in what we're doing right now to move this work forward and free Minister Farrakhan from these false allegations and clear the name and reputation of the Nation of Islam. Additionally, if you go to the website right now, and it's petitiononline.com/40acres. You can go there and you actually will have the opportunity to sign your name, become active, or write your name. You're not really signing this on the computer. But you can type your name in there, and whatever you want to do, you can say, call me, I want to be active, I want to do something. You can say, I love it, keep forward, keep going with it, here's 10 other people that I want you to all to contact. You can do whatever you want to do, so that you can show that you're with it. Now, some people may say it's symbolic. That's fine. They symbolically support us. All right? Okay? So that's only one of the things that we'll have here for you to do. Okay. All right, so at this point, we have something from our brother who is not a stranger to any of you. He is going to talk to us. How many of you all know Brother Jasiri X? Yeah. You've heard him. He's a current affairs reporter for the Hip Hop Nation. And every time something happens, almost instantly, he's almost like he sees the future. Well, he may, because he's studying prophecy and listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So right when something happens, less than 48 hours later, our brother has something that is relevant, timely, and you can listen to it and be entertained and informed. I want to bring before you Brother Jasiri X.
Assalamu alaikum. Happy Savior's Day. Happy Savior's Day to you, sir. I'm very nervous, so bear with me. But when I heard about the book, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, I definitely wanted to, as a hip-hop artist, but more so as a follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, lend my talents and gifts to freeing him from this prison that he's been put in of falsehoods and lies. And at the time in hip hop, the biggest song in hip hop out was a song by Rick Ross called BMF, Blowing Money Fast. And for those that are familiar with that song, he says, I think I'm Big Meech, Larry Hoover. And I felt like, well, you know, no disrespect to those brothers, but they're both doing life in prison. And too often times, gangsterism is associated with young black men who, if you really analyze and look at it, have no real power. And so at the same time, I looked and said, well, there were these guys on Wall Street that almost collapsed the whole economy, and the government wrote them a check for $800 billion. And they didn't go to jail. So who are the real gangsters? And so, you know, I tried to draw this correlation of that, but also with the book, The Secret Relationships of Blacks and Jews. So I wrote the song, and then that Sunday, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke the second time, the proof. And he started in his video talking about real gangsters. And I said, oh, Allah's God, I have my intro for the video that I'm going to put out about real gangsters. And so I hope you enjoy the video. And man, it's just an honor to be able to help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in this day and time. Thank you, Brother Shah.
Well, what about gangsters? Now you call yourself a gangster. I am a gangster disciple. Yeah, but you're not a good disciple of the real gangsters, because the real gangsters have taken a world. And we hustling drugs, all calling, killing one another. But real gangsters, that's punk stuff. Let me show you what gangster is. Watch this. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Gangster means organized crime to exploit the poor or the blind, using fortified lies. Before you call them the word, think more than 5 times. He used to roll with the cops, man, he borderline swine with a 360 deal, still on harder the sign line. Like a child, still amazed at how quarters and dimes shine. Real gangsters make billions, making slaves of civilians, making slaves of your children, making slaves do they killings. Really the game's brilliant, create the pain and the illness, and sell you the medicine that they claim will heal it. Real gangsters don't need guns to leave your brains on the ceiling. They teach you self-hatred and leave you chained by your feelings, almost insane from dealing with your everyday problems. They in every state, mobbing, doing heavyweight, robbing, intimidate, and Congress giving orders to the president, so all of them was selected before we elected them. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. They not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. These are real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. Not real gangsters. If you spent your whole paycheck and you ain't even saved yet, and you still in great debt, then are you still a slave? Yes, 800 billions in bailouts is what the bank gets. Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, throw up the gang sets. Money talks, but ebonics isn't his language. That's why any black man teaching economics is dangerous. Real gangsters are but 10%. Satan and his apprentices, banking businessmen, discipline, raping, pillaging innocence. Master plan fast, intricate. Africans witnessed it at the hands of the wickedest bastards and damn hypocrites, scamming riches with cash derivatives on Wall Street and slashing benefits as your senators, cause they all meet to send soldiers to secure the Iraq border before BP at Halliburton, New Orleans at Blackwater. If your land got resources, you get in the chat for it, cause real gangsters run the world on the backs of the poorest. These are real gangs, these are real gangs, these are real gangs, these are real gangs, they not real gangs, they not real gangs, they not real gangs, they not real gangs, these are real gangs, these are real gangs, these are real gangs, these are real gangs, they not real gangs, they not real gangs, they not real gangs, they not real gangsters.
Are you a gangster? Are you a sharecropper? You still on a plantation. See, the hood is a plantation now. Yeah! And you gangbangers are the plantation overlords. You done scared the hell out of everybody on the plantation. Hey man, you under man that controlling the whole world. And you just controlling a few corners? Well, we got to study this white man a little closer, don't you think?
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I have to give credit. This brother right here on this camera, Brother Edward X, also helped me shoot that video here in Chicago. So thank you, Brother Edward. Thank you.
All right, assalamu alaikum. All right, brothers and sisters, we just have a couple of quick orders of operation. We have action now, action items. You've been sitting there listening to all this, and now you want to get up and do it. Know what you can do to help Minister Farrakhan spread this word throughout the ends of the earth. So here's what we can do. For those of you who have not gotten the book yet, you can go right there to the final call table in the back and get your copy of The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Part 1 and 2, and Jews Selling Blacks. Again, both of these are 15, and this is 7 for this weekend. And you should go and you should buy one for somebody. Buy something for that student who doesn't have any money but needs this information. That's one thing you should do. We have the websites, blacksandjews.com. We also have the website, write this down, noi.org/HRD. From here on in, you'll be able to go and see electronic archives. Many of the members of the panel who have written these articles, from the members of the research team, you'll be able to see the electronic files. Go up there, print it out, read it. Make a commitment to forward these white papers to other individuals. When you hear somebody, if you have a Twitter account, right now you can do that. You go ahead and send a tweet out and tell them what we talked about in this message. If you have a Facebook account, take a picture of all of these people sitting here and say, this is how many people sat there and learned the truth about the secret relationship between blacks and Jews. And there was no vitriol, no hatred, no need to call a whole bunch of names, just the facts. Just the facts written in these books. We also have, of course, the Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews study guide that you can go and get right now in the back. We have volume 2. Volume 1 is coming. It's being printed. They're trying to get as many as we need, but they will be here and you will be able to order them. Just remember those websites, blacksandjews.com and noi.org/HRD. And while we're at it, you have to remind others, and since this is being broadcast live via webcast, we invite you at this time to go ahead and make an online donation. Right now, press the button that says donate now and assist us as we continue this work, and tell your friends who couldn't be here and those who wanted to be here. Make sure you convey the spirit of what we've done today. All right? Now, don't you think that your children should know this history? Oh, yes. Don't you think this is an important set of information for them? Instead of putting up lies in those history books on the shelf, you could put something written by the scholars of the Nation of Islam that came from us, that is truth.
That's right. What's up?
So right now, At this time, brothers and sisters, we want to bring forth the Student National Assistant to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Brother Minister Ishmael Muhammad. I thank you very much, and let's get active.
Let's give all of our wonderful panelists another warm round of applause. They had much more to share. We want to thank again Dr. Ridgely, Dr. Brother Larry Muhammad, our brother Jerome Muhammad, our student minister, Sister Ava Muhammad, Brother Jackie Muhammad, Brother Ashad Muhammad, Brother Cedric Muhammad, Brother Sultan Muhammad, and Brother Demetrius Muhammad. Let's give all of them a warm round of applause. As Sister Minister Ava said earlier, we were to make a promise that we would empower ourselves by the knowledge that was shared, and of course the course study that has been developed and the book is being made available to us. So we want to continue this study as well as dialogue. This session is now concluded, and